Gonna get started. We're gonna get started. We're gonna get started. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Are you there? Hello, everybody. Hey, this is Warren Redlick. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's talk about. I love there's this lag when I start. It seems to like catch up. Like I think it goes like 20 or 30 seconds before I start. So you guys see me taking off my glasses or doing whatever. I don't know. So, um, thank you for watching. We're going to talk about, oh, I got to pull up my outline. I made an outline this week. This is very exciting. We're going to talk about the Neuralink event. We're going to talk about the Tesla Semi event. We're going to talk about Tesla FSD. We're going to talk about other stuff. First thing I want to talk about, though, the first thing I want to talk about, though, is I invite my local supporters and my Patreon supporters and my YouTube channel members to submit questions in advance of the live stream. So I'm going to address their questions first, and then we're going to dive into the main content of the video today. So Ram says, in case we still suck at GMOs by around 2040, I think that means genetically modified organisms, will it be possible for BMIs, brain-machine interfaces such as Neuralink, to serve as a replacement or stopgap for behavioral vaccines? Maybe have an option in the GUI, graphical user interface, where users can switch them on or off at their own discretion, or maybe have particularly bad ones grayed out, so the user can't access them without jailbreaking or accessing the developer options. This could further reduce the need for government generally, including law enforcement. I don't understand half of this question or comment. I do think that it's likely that brain-machine interfaces such as Neuralink will help in a variety of ways humanity, and I'm going to talk about the Neuralink event that's coming up later in this video. I doubt that government. It's funny that you say reduce the need for government. We already have a very low need for government. The problem is that government tells us we have a big need for government, and until people recognize that we don't have a big need for government, we're going to have more government. And the real answer is to have less government. But I've been saying this for years, and no one listens. So it doesn't seem like the voices of small government are winning that competition. Big government grows, Republicans grow government, Democrats grow government. Trump spent like a bandit. So the idea that we're going to end up with smaller government under any circumstance seems unlikely to me. I'd like to see it. I just don't see it happening. So, and just be clear, if you support me on the Locals platform, if you support me on Patreon, or you support me as a YouTube channel member, then I invite people to submit questions or comments in advance of the live stream, and I address them first. So this one is from the YouTube community, the YouTube channel member, AK. Even with everything else going on, nothing sets people off like the prospect of a Tesla Elon branded phone. Is it just a warning to Apple and Google to not even consider Twitter app removal, or could this thing actually happen regardless? I suppose it could happen. It seems very unlikely to happen. I think it's. I don't know if it's a warning to Apple and Google. I don't think there's much chance of Apple or Google removing Twitter from the App Store or the Android Store or whatever. I don't think that's likely to happen. I mean, Truth Social is on both platforms, and Truth Social is presumably worse because Trump is on there. So I don't see any likelihood that that's going to happen. Mark Plot says limited government. Limited government would be nice. It was written into the Constitution, and then FDR and the Supreme Court overrode limited government, and we now have unlimited government. People who believe we have limited government, I don't know. I don't know what you're seeing. I've been watching the Supreme Court for the last however many decades, and they dumped, once they expanded the Commerce Clause, they eliminated the idea of limited government. Government can do whatever it wants. State governments always had the police power, which basically gave them unlimited power. The only real limit on government power is when citizens resist, and citizens don't resist that much. So let's talk about Neuralink. This is compelling. This is this video is from Neuralink. This is what they tweeted the other day. There's a show and tell. There's an event that, let's play this again. There's an event that is coming November 30th, so 3 days away. I think it's in San Francisco, and I think it's very likely that this is the first human patient in the Neuralink trial using the Neuralink to type text onto a screen. That's what I think is going on. And this is huge. So previously you saw Monkey Mind Pong, that monkey were playing video games and doing other things on the screen with their minds. and they set up this event, and I actually had an argument with Ryan Tanaka. I'm hoping to have Ryan Tanaka on my channel soon. Ryan, I think it's Monday. We're going to record a video on Monday. Ryan is the Neuralink YouTuber. Neuropod is his channel. And I told him I thought this event would be first human patient, and he didn't think they were there yet. And I think I'm right. I mean, we're going to find out. But if they took a human, let's say quadriplegic, tetraplegic, whatever, somebody who was not able to communicate to a computer before, and this person is now able to type text into a computer screen with their mind, that is a huge gain. That is a huge first step towards getting us where we want to go, to the brain-machine interface, curing brain diseases, curing paralysis, helping us understand the brain. There's so much more to it. If you watch, Ryan did an interview with Dave Lee that I think he published recently. It's Neuropod. I'll type it in the chat. Neuropod is the name of the channel. I typed it in the chat. Neurapod. So watch his interview with Dave Lee, a lengthy interview. He's interviewed a bunch of us YouTubers about what our expectations are for the Neuralink event and what we think is coming with Neuralink. And he talked about other topics as well with Dave Lee. It was a very good interview with Dave Lee. So really exciting to see that. But yeah, going back to this question, I don't think that Elon wants to make a phone. I don't think making a phone really fits with Elon's general approach to things, which is if you're going to do something, you want to do something that you're going to make 10x better than whatever existed before. And modern phones are pretty good. The only thing I feel frustrated with phones is that the phone app sucks. But I think phones are getting better and better and better. And I don't think it's very competitive, and it's not an ossified industry like tunneling where there's a huge opportunity for a boring company to come in. It's not where there's this huge gain to be had with Neuralink or SpaceX, totally revolutionizing the space industry. I think the phone industry is very, very competitive, so I don't think there's a lot of opportunity for phones there. I think the point was just if Apple and Google decided they weren't going to carry the Twitter app, and that was going to impair the success of Twitter, then I think Elon would have to make a phone. And I don't think it would take that long to make a phone. It would probably just be an Android phone, and they would create their own separate store where you could get the Twitter app, or they'd make a Twitter phone. Yeah, I don't think he's going to do that. So, so the big thing about Neuralink that I wanted to talk about, so number one, I think we can expect that we're going to see the first human patient, and it may be more than one human patient, who has a Neuralink implanted in their skull with electrodes going into the brain, reaching the motor cortex or some part of the brain, so that the person is able to use the Neuralink to do things that they were not able to do before. And this is very exciting. And this is a revolutionary step towards solving a wide variety of problems. There's so much here. There's everything, like Dave Lee talked about, all these people with permanent pain conditions, and medications don't. I've dealt with clients who had permanent pain conditions, and medication just doesn't really cut it. And then you end up taking narcotics, and you get a narcotics addiction. Is there a way that you can use Neuralink to calm people's pain? Are there brain diseases that they can address with Neuralink? Can they help the blind see? Can they help the deaf hear better? I think cochlear implants are already pretty good at that, but maybe Neuralink would be better. And, who knows where this goes in the future. The potential for Neuralink to enable humans to basically reach a new level of productivity and competence and ability is, we are limited in our bandwidth, particularly out. Like, we can watch video, but we don't really take video. We don't produce content at a high bandwidth. And if Neuralink enables our brains to send out content at a much higher bandwidth, and maybe take in content at a much higher bandwidth, it helps us keep up with the machines as AI moves forward. I think the one thing, I'm going to be doing a video after this video. This live stream is going to go for about an hour, about 50 minutes to go. At the end of this video, as usual, I'm going to start a video on the Daily Lie, which is warrenredlick.locals.com. There's a link in the top of the chat. There's a link in the top of the video description. And I'm going to talk more about this topic that, there's been more and more criticism of Elon about what's going on with Twitter, what's going on with Tesla. It doesn't make any sense. So here's this moment where they're basically describing Elon as this terrible human being, and you're going to see where Elon is addressing really horrifying brain disease, really horrifying medical conditions, and making life better for people. And it's going to be interesting to see how the media and politicians play this. And my gut hunch is they're just going to ignore it. They're going to pretend it didn't happen. You're going to see this astonishing display, and it will go viral on YouTube. It will go viral on Twitter. And it will probably go viral on Facebook and other social media platforms. That if I know Elon, and the team, they're going to stage this so that you get the backstory of the individual, what led to their impairment, describe the quality of life they have before the Neuralink, and describe the quality of life after, and have that person communicate to the audience, I now have hope for the future. And it's going to be a tearjerker, and it's going to go viral on YouTube. It's going to go viral on Twitter and so on. And I expect that the Elon bashing media and the Elon bashing politicians will pretend it didn't happen. They need Elon to be the evil monster, and evil monsters don't cure brain diseases. Evil monsters don't help people who are struggling with problems. No one is in a worse position than someone who's, let's say, a quadriplegic or tetraplegic who's stuck. I don't even know what tetraplegic means. Elon uses that term. People who are stuck, and their bodies are basically unmoving and unable to do anything with their bodies, and their minds are trapped in their bodies. It's a really horrible situation for them. And, if Elon is able to make their lives better, it's huge. If Elon and the Neuralink team are able to make their lives better, it's huge, huge, big change, very positive event for the future. And right now we're in this cycle where the media and politicians, Democratic politicians in particular, have been demonizing Elon for a couple years. I mean, the media has been demonizing Elon forever, but Democratic Party politicians have been bashing Elon for a while. So I think this is going to be that moment where you can tell, how are they going to play? This is a story that if AOC did this, right? Pick your popular figure. If LeBron James did this, if Michael Jordan did this, if Oprah Winfrey did this, it would be, if Sam Bankman-Fried did this, you would see gushing news stories and the mainstream media. You would see politicians, racing to say how wonderful it is. And my prediction is that they will duck this. They will just pretend it didn't happen. They need him to be evil. They cannot. It is more important for them to paint Elon as evil and to bash Tesla and to bash Twitter than it is to actually do something valuable for humanity. That's my take, and it'll be interesting to see this. I'm going to talk more about that after this live stream, on the next live stream on the Daily Live, which is a free speech platform, and there are things I feel like I'm not comfortable talking about here, and I can speak more comfortably there. And the plan for that stream, as usual, now this is a practice I've adopted, is the first half of the stream, or the first 10, 15 minutes of the stream, will be public, and at a certain point, I'll switch it to supporters only. And I, definitely appreciate your support. For those who don't know, YouTube ad revenue has been down. I think for a lot of people, it's been down for me. My impression is that YouTube itself has been experiencing lower ad revenue, and a lot of platforms have been experiencing lower ad revenue because of the downturn in the economy. Even Jeff Bezos said, "Don't buy stuff for Christmas." Like, okay. So, for those of us, Jordan Gieske very good at this. Stephen Mark Ryan's very good at this, getting Patreon support. I'm using the Locals platform because it's a free speech platform, and I tend to say things that are more controversial. I don't think this week's going to be that controversial, but I'm using that platform. And if you support me on that platform or on Patreon or as a YouTube channel member, it really helps someone like me get past the hump of slow times where the advertising revenue's down. And don't cry for me, I'll be okay. I do still own a lot of Tesla stock. I'll be all right. I'm not broke, don't worry. So that's what's going on there. Let me just check the chat here. I'm just he's too busy with his yacht. I guess that must be Bezos. Haters gonna hate, I guess, even if you try to point to them the positive aspects about Musk and his companies, they will try to downplay it. I don't think they're gonna downplay the accomplishment. They're gonna ignore it. They're gonna pretend it. That it's gonna be really hard for them to spin this any way other than having to acknowledge that Elon did something good, and so they won't do that. So John Bay says, how long will it take Twitter to compensate contributors? I think that's Oh, I don't know how to pronounce it. Bezos or Bezos. I think it's going to take time before Twitter is able to compensate contributors. Right now, they're just getting the apps, getting everything working fast, improving the code, getting certain basic things working, and then that's going to come along. So hello, everybody. Hey, Sam. So next thing I wanted to talk about is Tesla Semi. So let me just pop this up here. Martin Viecha is the director of investor relations for Tesla. He says the Semi might be my favorite Tesla product because most people in the investment community, including large holders that I speak to, didn't believe it's possible to make a 500-mile fully loaded Class 8 truck. Deliveries start next week. The delivery event is coming. That's December 1st. By the way, I had requested, I didn't get a ticket to the Semi event. I didn't get a ticket. Somebody else had requested a ticket for the Neuralink event for me. I didn't get tickets to either event. I just sort of accepted it, and my life is still a little bit tumultuous. I'm moving into a new place. I'm getting comfortable. Right now, I'm still at the house that I'm trying to sell. I'm temporarily this weekend at the house I'm trying to sell. One of my kids is visiting from college, so it's a chance to spend time with my kid. But I'm getting settled into a new place, and I just felt like that kind of travel would just get in the way of getting myself settled. And I didn't have the tickets anyway, so I'm not going to Semi event. I'm not going to Neuralink event. I'm a little disappointed. I particularly wanted to go to the Neuralink event, but I heard that it's packed, that they're really having trouble getting enough room for people to come in and see this event. I think people got wind of what's coming and they want to be there. And, there's other people who are closer who are going to get more out of it. So we'll see what happens with that. Let's talk about Semi, though. So Semi is going to get 500 miles fully loaded. Elon said the same thing. They just completed a 500-mile drive with a Tesla Semi weighing in at 81,000 pounds. I'm pretty sure it wasn't downhill like Nikola. This is a big deal. Did you be able to get 500 miles of range? I think it's got basically a 1 megawatt hour battery pack, and 2 miles a kilowatt hour would get you there. If they did really well, maybe they got the battery pack down to 900 kilowatt hours or 800 kilowatt hours, but it may be a full megawatt hour. So there's a couple of issues with Semi. Number one, I think people should realize the market for Semi is really, really big. I talked to one of the guys I know who tests Tesla Semi for Tesla. He works for Tesla as a semi test driver. He is saying that this thing is over the top good. Like he's somebody who's driven a truck for a living before, and he said Tesla Semi is a massive game changer. Cost of operation, the reduced amount of maintenance, the more time on the road. There's so many benefits to it. It drives better. It drives faster. There's so many advantages to Tesla Semi. So the current Semi market in North America, US and Canada, I think is around 250,000 vehicles a year. So really, that's the upside just in the US is potentially 250,000 vehicles a year, but I think you probably could expect more like 200,000 a year down the road. It's going to take time to manufacture enough of them to manufacture at scale. But the potential market for that is huge. And then the question really becomes, what's the pricing? So if it's a 1 megawatt hour pack, even if you got to $100 a kilowatt hour, then you'd be talking about $100,000 just for the batteries. And they initially said that the 500-mile range Semi would be $180,000. I think that's out of reach now. But if the tax credits apply and you get $45 a kilowatt hour off in tax credits, then and that's assuming you get to $500 to $100 a kilowatt hour, which I'm not sure they got to. But if you were able to get to $100 a kilowatt hour for your battery cells, and then you were able to get $45 off, so you're down to $55 a kilowatt hour. Now your battery pack cost effectively is $55,000. I still think, and from talking to my friend, I think that the retail price, when they actually start selling these in volume, they're going to sell them for at least $250,000. I think there's a $40,000 tax credit as well on top of that for just buying the vehicle. So, if it was going to be 180 and you sell it for 220, the buyer still gets it for 180. You're still making some money, but my impression is this thing is actually worth like $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. So down the road, Tesla's going to sell this for closer to $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000, and then you're going to see a significant profit margin. If they sell it at $180,000, there's not much margin because you spent $100,000 just on the battery pack. Again, it could be $55,000 with tax credits, whatever, but there's just not a lot of room for profit margin there. So we'll see where that goes. My gut hunch is we're going to see down the road that Tesla Semi is going to be priced higher. And then you also have the Chinese market for semi is about 4 times the size of the US market for semi. And the European market is different. I just watched this video that the typical semi-like vehicle has sort of like a snub nose. It's like a front face instead of having this big shape in front. And maybe Tesla will be able to make a version of semi that looks like that. And there's, the typical semi in the US is 20 feet long. The typical European semi is 10 feet long, and that relates to the total length of the vehicle allowed. You want that vehicle to be shorter, and people the drivers don't spend as much time on a daily basis, and they don't sleep in their semis like they do in the US. So the semi that they might make for Europe would be different. I'm not sure how it would work in China, but there's a lot of potential for Tesla to expand, and probably another 200,000 a year in Europe, and maybe 500,000 a year or more in China. So you could ultimately see 1 million vehicles a year, let's say, between China and North America and Europe. And 1 million a year times $300,000, that's a lot of revenue. If I'm not mistaken, that's $300 billion a year in revenue. So did I get that right? 1 million units a year times $300,000. I think that's $300 billion a year in revenue. That would be pretty good. It can't be right. I think that getting to 1 million units is several years away. So I'm not going to get carried away with that, but I just think there's some crazy potential there. So let's see what we got in the chat. Cab over engine, yes. Zach and Jesse were talking about putting a tiny house, a custom build on a flatbed and pulling around America on their semi. I think there's a lot of potential for semi to replace RVs, but that's a very small market. Our motorhomes that are that size tend to be like $1 million, and there's just, there's like 5,000 of those sold a year. So that's just not a big market. The market for tractor, and they don't, the accelerating the transition to sustainable energy goes a lot farther with a semi that's being used 12, 16 hours a day versus an RV that's driven a couple hundred miles, a week. Megapacks went up from 1 million to 1.6 million. From what I've seen, Megapacks are now retailing, if you buy one, for $2.4 million. If you buy them in some volume, they're closer to $2 million. Like if you buy 5 units, they're like $2 million. If you buy larger quantities, then the price comes down. First semi must be named Rubber Duck. I like that. I think the thing is that the idea of doing the RV is just not important because it's just a low volume market. It's something that we want to see down the road, but it's not a huge changeover. Tesla van will be better for an RV conversion. Sure. What are my thoughts on Gary Black dunking on your battery revenue model on Farzad's podcast the other day? I actually did not see that. So Jupiter, thanks for letting me know. I will take a look at that. Gary just isn't a long-term thinker. So it's so comical that he doesn't want to, have a conversation with me. He's afraid of having a conversation with me. If he had that conversation with me, which is something I wanted to do, and he chickened out and said, he refused. He said he wouldn't have a public conversation about anything like that. Of course, he can take a cheap shot when I'm not there. I'm open to having the conversation with Gary, but Gary's a chicken shit. So sniping at me from, it's right there. Like anytime Gary wants to have a public conversation, I'm no longer willing to do a moderator. Okay? Because he's a pussy. I don't have a better way of saying it. Man up. I'm sorry. I know this is not gender fair or this is not woke, but man up and let's have a conversation. I'm not scary. It's a Zoom call. What's the big deal? He's not going to have a conversation with me because his logic doesn't hold up. He's not, it's preposterous. He's not, other people won't, this is the thing, like you guys know I'm a trial lawyer by training, and if I don't get the answer to a question, I'm going to drill to get the answer to the question, and he doesn't have answers. Like, well, what's his alternative to the battery revenue model? What's his alternative to the robo-taxi model? He doesn't have anything. So anyway, all right, let's ditch that. Okay, the other big thing with Tesla news this recently is there's 2 things with FSD. Actually, I don't want to put that up yet. I wanted to talk about FSD. So 10.69.3.1. I have 10.69.3.1. I've driven it. you know, hear a lot of people saying how much better it is, and I don't think I'm that good of a judge of the quality. Like I still think like some circumstances where I'm driving, I do think it's better the Chuck Cook style unprotected left turns. I do feel like that's improving, but it's hard to. It's hard to. I'm enjoying the chat. That's why I'm laughing. It I think it's really hard for an individual to drive a version of FSD and offer a meaningful assessment of how it's working, because you know your one drive is such a small sample compared to all the drives that they're monitoring, because there's 160,000 or 200,000 plus people who are driving FSD beta, and they're generating a ridiculous amount of data. And Tesla's not looking at what was Warren's drive like today, what was Farzad's drive like today, what was Chuck Cook's light drive like today. They're looking at 200,000 drives, and they're looking for where the interventions are, and they're looking for where the car detects something and then recognizes it was wrong, and how they can improve. And they're identifying like these are the things we need to improve. And we don't have that list. We don't know what they're working on. So I don't like but I'm driving 10.69.3.1, and I think it feels better in some circumstances. I still think it's struggling with suicide lanes. That if suicide lane is you got two lanes going this way and two lanes coming this way, and in the middle is a lane that's got outer yellow solid lines and inner dotted lines, and that's a lane where you typically would pull in. You're making a left turn onto the roadway, and you pull in and wait until you can make it into the suicide lane, so you turn in there, and then you wait for an opening in the lane you're going into, and you turn in there, and you make the lane change and head on. Or you're getting off the road, you're making a left turn, and you pull into the suicide lane to wait until you've got a left turn available. And my experience is it's still not that good at that. I did drive it in some roundabouts, yesterday and last night. I think it did better in roundabouts, but you know, it's just sort of like, okay, that's like one limited experience. The one roundabout it stopped instead of going. You know, it waited too long to go. But the same roundabout I came through later, and it went right through it. So, and another roundabout, it went right through, like no problem. It went slow, but it went right through. So I just think it's really hard to judge that, and I feel like it's still not handling speed bumps as well as I would like. There are speed bumps it doesn't seem to see and slow down for. It's doing better at debris in the roadway, but it's just hard. It's hard to figure that out. So we got 10.69.3.1. I have it. I've just heard from another friend of mine just got it. I think that's becoming widespread. Version 11 is coming. Version 11 is where currently when you're driving FSD, on regular roads, you get FSD beta. On interstate highways, you get Highway Autopilot, which is an older version of the software that doesn't really use Tesla Vision System in the same way that FSD beta uses it. And that's kind of gotten out of date, and they were trying to get FSD beta working well enough to replace, because Highway Autopilot worked really well. A much more limited environment. There's a lot less chaos. There's typically no pedestrians on an interstate highway. There's fewer intersections, so it's easier for it to work. But they finally got it, so that now we're going to go to what's called single stack, where the same code is working on both situations. I think they already implemented FSD beta's same stack for parking lots. So, as I understand it, FSD version 11 is out for employees. I haven't heard that like any of the early beta testers have gotten it, but maybe I'm wrong. Like I don't think Chuck Cook, when Chuck Cook has it, we know. I don't think Chuck Cook has it yet. And it's not going to be material for city streets driving. The change is James Douma again, Dave Lee interviewed James Douma, and they talked about the release notes. And my impression is that the version 11 is not a big jump from 10.69.3.1 for most driving. It's only on the interstate highways that it's going to be different. So, it's not going to affect Chuck Cook's unprotected left turn. Any news on boring tunnel in Florida? No, I've been watching for it. I haven't seen any news on that. So yeah, one stack to rule them all. I think the big thing is that this now frees up more engineers to focus on improving the FSD beta stack. So we'll see that improve quicker. We're going to have more data coming in. There's more compute coming online, more supercomputing power coming online. Dojo is probably I believe that Dojo is working in a limited form yet. I don't think there's a full Dojo cluster running yet, but I believe they are using Dojo in some limited way, and that will grow and we'll be able to do more. So Brian Keck says, I just demoed 10.69.3 after a discussion about Robotaxi to some other software engineers, and they were very surprised. Yeah, I think, but honestly, like 6 months ago, I showed it. What was it? No, it was last Halloween. So it was more than a year ago. I showed FSD Beta and my Model 3 to a software engineer, and he was amazed at it then. It was already amazing. It's just improving, and it's hard for us to appreciate the improvements, but they're there. So what else did I want to talk about with FSD? Oh, I wanted to talk about this. So the other piece of news, one of the things that some in the FSD beta driver community are excited about or focused about is when's the next generation hardware coming. There's a sense from some, including Chuck Cook and Tesla Lisa, that the current generation of hardware isn't good enough to be able to deliver full self-driving, and we need a new generation of hardware, better cameras, better processing. I don't think they're correct. I think we're seeing very rapid improvement in the current hardware, but ultimately there will have to be new hardware. Now, what's exciting about this, and I'm going to brag that I've called something, because I like to brag about whenever I get something right. So back at Autonomy Day, Elon talked about that they were already underway on the next generation, which would be version 4, right? Version 3 is what's in the cars now. And he said it would be like 3 times faster, and he described this cycle, and it sounded like it would be on 7 nanometer chips. And you can see here that they're now apparently going to 4 nanometer, 5 nanometer chips. And I think what happened, and this is what I called a while back, was because FSD continued to improve so quickly on the version 3 hardware, they didn't need to go to the next generation hardware as quickly, and that allowed them to skip a cycle. So instead of doing 7 nanometer chips, they're able to do 4 and 5 nanometer chips. This means less power consumption. It means more computing power. It's just advantages in a lot of ways. It should be able to handle more video data, process data quicker, probably handle larger neural net models on the car. A lot of really big advantages to this. So that's coming, and it's supposed to come on Cybertruck, assuming it's still good. See, I think the thing is, as long as they're making massive improvements on the version 3 chip, they don't need to go to the next generation chipset. And they don't need to go to the next generation cameras. I think people feel like they need the next generation cameras. Lisa and Chuck think maybe they need cameras in the front bumper, but that's not really backward compatible to the existing fleet, so I don't know that they're going to do that. I think that the Tesla team thinks that they're able to visualize the world without having these cameras in the front bumper looking sideways. So we'll see. I don't know. But anyway, the original story was that Samsung was going to be doing the version 4 chip in 7 nanometer. That's how I remember it. And now it looks like Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC, is apparently going to be supplying Tesla with a chip. And it's very possible that Tesla is doing both, right? They could be doing Samsung and TSMC. We don't know. So we'll see. Elon does have a little bit of a reality distortion field around him. I agree with that. But, the key is he believes it. And one other quick FSD thing, the idiot Dan O'Dowd did these tests where he basically ran over strollers in some parking lot somewhere. And you may see this. I think he took out a New York Times ad. And anyway, he said in his tweet, running down a stroller in a parking lot, it's a common driving scenario where pedestrians are likely to be present. Well, we now have like 200,000 cars driving FSD beta on a daily basis. Maybe it's more than 200,000. And as far as I know, no Tesla running any form of FSD has ever hit a stroller. So if it's a common driving scenario, where are the dead bodies? Dan, I just don't understand where the dead bodies are, Dan. Where are the dead children, Dan? It's like you can manufacture a situation where you put a stroller in the middle of a parking lot and you put another object in the way and you play games or whatever. We don't really know how he's doing these tests. We don't know. From the videos that he published here, it was hard to tell whether FSD beta was actually engaged. It just really wasn't clear. So he's just playing games. Dan O'Clown, exactly. Sean says, has Tesla or Elon Musk guided if they will sell the Cybertruck, including the FSD purchase price stated on our order page, or will it be whatever FSD costs in 2023 plus when delivered? The contract, when I ordered Cybertruck, I looked at the contract, for lack of a better term. The FSD price was locked in. The price of the truck was not locked in. So my expectation is that the first Cybertruck will be a quad motor, and it might very well have 500 miles of range. Let's talk about that for a second. I don't know if I've talked about this before on YouTube or whatever, but Cybertruck is coming, and I should make a full video about this. Cybertruck has more. I have a Model X Plaid. Cybertruck is wider and taller than my Model X Plaid. So it has more frontal surface area. And it has a lower coefficient of drag. So the highway aerodynamics of Cybertruck is worse than my Model X Plaid. My Model X Plaid gets about 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour officially. It's really more like 3 miles a kilowatt hour or less, depending on how fast you're going, but call it 3.3 miles a kilowatt hour. Because Cybertruck is bigger, because Cybertruck has a poorer coefficient of drag, I'm not sure if it weighs more or not. We'll see about that. Quad motor is probably going to weigh more. I think what we're going to see is that it's going to have a worse miles per kilowatt hour than my car. So in order to get 500 miles of range, if you're going to get, let's say, 3 miles a kilowatt hour, you need like a 167 kilowatt hour battery pack to get 500 miles of range. So are they going to do a 180 kilowatt hour pack in Cybertruck? There's room under Cybertruck. Cybertruck has a lot of the space between the front and rear wheels and between from side to side there's more space under Cybertruck, so there's more room for batteries. So so I think it's conceivable that we will see a quad motor Cybertruck first. Elon has said that the first Cybertruck sold will be a quad motor, and it's probably going to be in the ballpark of $100,000 or more, and it'll be worth it, right? 500 miles of range, and all the utility of the Cybertruck. It might even be 120 grand. With that, they'll be doing that for a few months, 6 months, whatever. At some point, they'll come out with a dual motor. I don't think they're going to do a tri-motor. I think they're going to do quad motor and dual motor, and single motor, if they ever do it, is going to be way down the road. And then dual motor, I think a 100 kilowatt hour pack or slightly more than 100 kilowatt hour pack would get you 300 miles of range, which is what they said for dual motor. So unless they have some, stunning new efficiency in operating these vehicles. I mean, the thing is, aerodynamics are what they are. I don't think you can overcome aerodynamics. So my gut hunch is we're going to see like 170, 180 kilowatt hour pack in quad motor and 120 kilowatt hour pack in dual motor. And I don't think they're going to honor the $50,000 price for dual motor. There's just been so much inflation, so many costs have gone up, that I think we're going to see dual motor for like 75 grand. But they said they will honor, I believe they will honor the FSD price. So we'll see what happens. So yeah, I've been wondering when the Tesla legal team's going to sue somebody. We haven't seen that yet. So yeah, we don't know what's going on with Dan O'Dowd's strollers. Yeah, how often do you see a stroller in the middle of a parking lot by a speed bump with a trash can sitting like 10 feet away? Like it's a completely uncommon scenario, and he calls it a common scenario. Well, where are the dead bodies? Do I have FSD on my Model X? I have FSD beta 10.69.3.1 on my Model X. I have 10.69.3.1 on my Model 3. I can't afford 120 grand. I can't afford my Model X either, but I'm going to do it. So, all right. So let me go into the chat. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Thank you, everybody, for participating. I want to remind you again that let me paste this here in the chat. In about 20 minutes, I'm going to end this live stream, and I'm going to go to the Locals platform, warrenredlick.locals.com, the Daily Live. We're going to talk about Elon and the media and recent criticism of Elon. And so I put that link in the chat. It's in the top of the description. Please check that out when we're done here. Can we use Dan O'Dowd as the dummy in this test? Yes, let's see. So let me scroll up a bit and look at the chat. There's a lot in the chat here today. Hugh says, I have a 2019 Model 3 Tesla with FSD. Will the chip need to be updated to enjoy all the new FSD updates? No, I think the 2019 Model 3 Tesla has the hardware 3 chip, which should be good. I think at some point there will be a hardware 4 chip, and you might want to upgrade to it. I don't know whether the upgrade is going to be included or not. You might have to pay for it, and it'll probably be worth it if it is. I think it's going to take time for when there's a shift to version 4, I think it's going to take time to retrain the software on the new hardware. Just because you have new, better hardware doesn't mean the software is going to work as well. You probably need to retrain everything on the new hardware. So, we'll see how that plays out. I'm not sure how they're planning on handling that. Where am I? I am in the home that I am selling. Where is Tesla a year from now? I'm not sure. Tesla will be in Fremont and Shanghai and Austin and Berlin and Buffalo. Tesla, the company. Where will the stock be? I don't make short-term stock price predictions. I've stopped doing that. If I made them before, I've stopped. I look at where I think the company's value is going to be 5-10 years from now, and I see spectacular news. And I do think that if Tesla continues to deliver earnings growth, then the stock will eventually follow, but it seems to be taking its time doing that. They have been delivering revenue growth and earnings growth. What is my read on the China situation? Could it significantly affect the numbers? I don't like to get into that macro stuff. My read is that the Chinese government is struggling to deal with COVID, and they're probably making some poor decisions, and there's nothing we can do about that, and hopefully it won't. I think that Tesla has learned how to manage production and manage their supply chain to do as well as they can in that situation, but we'll see. Neuralink Tesla interface. I think an interface between Neuralink and your car is a long way off, and I don't know that there's much reason to have a Neuralink Tesla interface. I mean, I suppose if you wanted to see the view out of your cameras in Sentry mode when your car's parked somewhere, I suppose you could use it for that. It just doesn't seem very important. The car is going to drive itself. What's the point of having the Neuralink linked to your Tesla? If Neuralink gets a paraplegic to walk, how likely is Neuralink to get a Nobel Prize in medicine? Oh, they'll probably get excoriated for, in the deaf community, there's this opposition to cochlear implants because people can hear, they don't need to use sign language anymore. I half expect people to say that Elon is ruining the lives of the paralyzed people because they're no longer in that community of paralyzed people. That's how sick they are. Now we have to talk about how people are addicted to the internet and consider that when talking about Neuralink. Well, I'm pretty much addicted to the internet, so I'm a good example of that. What about the pig? I don't think they're going to be talking about pigs or monkeys in the... I mean, we'll see what happens with the Neuralink presentation. I think they're going to talk about the first human trial. I think the pig experiments and monkey experiments, they might still be doing some of them, but that might be over. Just looking in the chat here. Oh, thank you, Mark Potocnik, for your support. Bezos is probably having the time of his life hanging out with his girlfriend and seems to always be doing something fun. Yeah, well, I mean, the guy earned it. Don't be so hard on Jeff Bezos. One rumor from a programmer online with friends and Twitter is that the monetized videos will be up by next summer. Yeah, I don't think there's a huge rush to get videos monetized. I mean, I think to some extent, as long as advertisers are off, there's not much point in monetizing anything. But we'll see. Can anyone put an order for semi, or is it restricted to companies only? So for a period of time, anyone could order semi. I believe they've taken ordering off the page. My friend Xander and Christian, they ordered a semi like the last day that it was available. They didn't realize that it was going to be taken off. I think because they ordered it, they decided to remove it from the order page from the website. So we'll see. It's hard to get excited about semi until we know how much it weighs. 81,000 pounds, 500 miles is good, but not if half the weight is battery. No, it's a full payload. It's a full ordinary payload. It's the same payload that a diesel semi would carry. So, and the event should go off fine. They're going to deliver semis to PepsiCo and Frito-Lay or whatever, and it'll be fine. Will Elon pull one more thing like last time with the Roadster? There is a theory that they're going to deliver Roadster at the same time, but I think that's unlikely. When Pepsi saves big money with their Tesla semi, all their competitors will stand in line to get them just to compete. Did they announce semi pricing? Well, semi pricing was announced previously as $180,000 for the 500-mile range and $150,000 for the 300-mile range. Whether they honor that pricing and what the new pricing will be, we'll see. Hi, Johnny Football. Johnny Football like Johnny Manziel? Will Tesla talk about new Tesla semi prices? It's possible that they'll talk about pricing, but I wouldn't be surprised if they don't talk about pricing at this event. I think it's just we're delivering the vehicle and they're going to start delivering to people who've already ordered them. And it's going to take time for them to manufacture at scale to get through the orders they have to be able to then start selling them to others. Will the first semis be day cab? Wonder if and when. I don't think there's any sleeper cabs for semi yet. I think there will be eventually, but right now I don't think they've configured it for that. I think the idea that somebody mentioned this is it's to go to a site and come back. They're going to take deliveries from the Pepsi or Frito-Lay warehouse and deliver it to some location and then come back and charge at the warehouse again. Anything under 300,000 for semi is a bargain. Just an opinion. Yeah, no, I think even 500,000 might be a bargain because of the amount of money you save running it on an annual basis. If it's going to last 10 years, you save like $100,000 a year. So you're basically saving $1 million by paying 500,000. So, just looking in the chat again. Issue with semi is mega chargers in space. It won't fit a standard supercharger space. Mega chargers on, yeah, they'll expand mega chargers to more locations over time. Eventually it'll be in truck stops, but I think initially they're going to put mega chargers in customer locations, as in the places that are using the trucks, the truck customers. I think that's coming. Matt Senkow says we need to know what it weighs to compare. I'm telling you, they said it's carrying the same payload. So if it's carrying the same payload, it has to weigh the same. After semi, Cybertruck, and the $25,000 compact car, I wonder if Tesla will go into vans next. I think it's likely that the $25,000 compact will have a van version, and it seems pretty straightforward to make a van version of Cybertruck. But it's hard to know when they're going to go that way with any of that. And, maybe they would rather do a purpose-built van. I just could see like a small van concept on the robo-taxi platform is going to make a lot of sense. $40,000 tax credit in semi is a huge deal. Yes. 80% of semis drive less than 300 miles round trip. Yes. The Gary conversation. Investment funds don't want to be bothered by their investors asking about Elon, so it is annoying. They would rather sell than be bothered. I don't know. Tesla community needs to come together again. Gary's all right. So let me just talk about this really quickly. I mean, I didn't expect to talk about this again, but it is common in any movement or community that as it grows, at some point it factionalizes. Factions form. I mean, you see cliques in local high schools, right? You can see it in the suffrage movement. You can see it in a variety of movements over time. You have different people have different approaches to how they want to solve whatever the problem is or however they want to represent what the issue is. And one person gets too big for their britches and decides they're bigger than the current leadership and they form their own faction. So Gary Black comes, I don't know, and Gary has his take on things and I have my take on things. Gary is very much a short-termer. He will pretend he's a long-termer, but he's totally a short-termer. He's constantly talking about short-term things. I think talking about short-term stuff is pointless. I think it's a distraction. I think it gets people unduly obsessed with short-term things that don't really matter, that the long-term is what really matters if you're a long-term shareholder. So, I mean, no, and Gary he stated a very high price target 6 to 12 months from now, which is probably unreasonable. And it's almost like if they don't achieve the price target he sets, then he can justify, criticizing Tesla for it. So have Farzad as moderator. No, we don't need a moderator. We don't need a moderator. Gary needs a moderator. I don't need a moderator. Gary's a chicken if he needs a moderator. He's not going to do it. Like there's no point in talking about it. He's not going to do it. He's afraid to have a genuine conversation with somebody who's going to ask him hard questions. Do you think Tesla will ever sell the platform skateboard so others like us simple folk can plop a body on it? I don't think so. No, I think Tesla has enough demand for the vehicles that they're making that there's no point in them making a platform. The reality is that Tesla makes money. The future of Tesla is that they make the most money by selling the vehicle with FSD. So I suppose if you sold the platform with FSD and then you want to put whatever body on it you want, I suppose that's okay. But the economies of scale of Tesla making a high volume of a certain vehicle, like unless you're going to make a high volume of your vehicle on that platform, it's probably not going to make sense. And I think the way they're designing the vehicles now is there really isn't like a proper skateboard. Like the whole vehicle is built together. Let's see. Has Tesla or Elon Musk guided if they'll sell Cybertruck? I think we answered that already. John Bay says it's not a suicide lane, it's a left turn merge lane. Whatever, people call it a suicide lane. You don't have to like it. It's called a suicide lane because you end up with people sometimes there's a conflict because one person's coming in, another person's coming in, and they conflict. It's poor road design is what it is. Yeah, Dale says the data about FSD, the data pouring in from new users will likely make quicker improvements going forward. If you pay attention to Karpathy, you pay attention to Karpathy and you pay attention to James Dalma, what's going to improve FSD is more data and more compute. So more cars collecting data means you have more information to be able to train your software to do better in the future. And having more compute, having more supercomputers doing the training models enables you to crunch more models and make more improvements more quickly and larger improvements more quickly. So I think that it's a combination of more data and more supercomputers is going to make it better. John Bay says, too funny. It's only $2 billion in revenue for fourth quarter FSD revenue recognized. I don't think we've heard an official number on what the revenue recognition will be. I think I've heard that Wall Street is going to ignore it, but it shouldn't be fully ignored because going forward, FSD revenue recognition will be higher for new sales. So, and I think there's, one of the things that I probably will make a video about is what's going to happen with FSD pricing for 2023, for Tesla pricing for 2023. Because for a Model 3, it has to be under $55,000. For sedans, it has to be under $55,000 to qualify for the tax credit. So Tesla's probably going to make a version of its car for $54,900. And, all the options are included or whatever. And then maybe it's going to be like a 310-mile range Model 3. Because the standard range is like $47,000. So they'll make, somewhat longer range Model 3 for something like $54,000. And then you buy FSD after, or you subscribe to FSD after, so that's not included in the price. And then for Model Y, the cap is $80,000. So I think you're going to see, like maybe there'll be a Plaid Y, like a high performance version of Model Y that they'll sell for $79,000. And, you get your $7,500 tax credit. But I think pretty much all Model Ys will qualify for the credit as long as you don't buy FSD on them. Maybe even if you do buy FSD on them. We'll see. How long do you think the March of Nines will take between version 11 to a robotaxi first fare? I think we're going to see a robotaxi trial next year, but it's really, really hard to call that one. This is one of those things where I don't like making short-term predictions. From what I see, they're making rapid improvements, and it's hard to know when it crosses that threshold. It's like when DeepMind started beating the best players in the world at Go, or when computers started being the best players in the world at chess. It was like it wasn't as good, and then all of a sudden it was a lot better. It moves really fast. So we're going to get there. We just don't know when. And I think Tesla has a pretty good idea of when they're going to get there because they have a list of things they're trying to improve. And they think when we knock off this list of 20 or 50 problems, we're going to be really close. But we don't know what that list of problems is. Do I think the talk about a Tesla cell phone that connects to Starlink is just talk, or are they working on it? I don't think there's any talk about a Tesla cell phone. I do think that they announced that T-Mobile would have a connection to Starlink, but it's very limited. It's like very limited voice connection and limited texting. That's already been announced, but I don't think that the communication to a satellite that's whizzing 17,000 miles an hour, 200 miles up, is just not a very effective way to do cell phones. That's not really a good long-term plan for a cell phone network. Mark Plot says Tesla has built several Dojo cabinets. I had not heard that. It's interesting. Well, I'm curious, Mark, if you're still, I'm sure you're still in the chat. I'd be curious to know where you heard that Tesla has built several Dojo cabinets. I have not seen that. Andy Onion says, Super Waza, why don't you get your ass down to Starbase and ask reception if you can see the great man? You can't even get into reception. You're not allowed to get to even the reception point. I don't need to see Elon. I would like to meet Elon, but I don't have any particular need to meet him. I'd love to get a selfie with him so I can put it on my dating profiles, right? But speed bumps are fixed. I heard someone say the antenna needed on the phone would be bigger than the phone. In order to have a useful satellite phone, you would have to have a very big, very effective antenna and more. And I think the battery usage would be really high as well. John Bay says speed bumps are fixed, can be mapped. For those that ever lived in the Northeast know what frost heaves are, random weather caused speed bumps. I would love to see, and I think this is one of the things that's coming, is I think we're going to see Tesla start crowdsourcing mapping from the cars. I think this is something that's going to happen in the next 6 months, but it's just a guess. TSMC supplying Tesla with 4 nanometer, 5 nanometers feels bullish. We don't know that's true yet. That was like a rumor, just to be clear. Do we know where TSMC is going to manufacture Tesla chips? The rumor was that it would be in Arizona. The rumor was that TSMC was going to be manufacturing these chips in Arizona. They have a factory site in Arizona. How much time would you guess it takes to go from... Okay, I did that. Let's see. Many of Dan O'Dowd's videos cover up the verification on the screen that FSD is on. He must be either a hater, a paid liar, or both. Exactly. Which will go first, side mirrors or calling it a recall when Tesla addresses an issue? The recall is going to stay. That's not going anywhere. Side mirrors, you'll be able to remove them from Cybertruck. They will come with Cybertruck, but you'll be able to take them off. Semi with huge tax credit may not be much more than your Cybertruck tri-motor. Maybe. Teslas have a 230% conflagration rate? I don't think so. Cybertruck Plaid? I think the quad motor will be better than Plaid, but not faster because of the mass. Well, we'll see. That's going to be interesting to see how fast that is. Do I think the future all future FSD lawsuits will be fairly adjudicated? No. There are always lawsuits that are not fairly adjudicated, and there are lawsuits that are fairly adjudicated, and we can't know how that's going to work. Just be clear, we got 5 minutes left before I'm going to go to the Locals platform, to the Daily Lie, and continue live streaming there. So I just put a link again in the chat. How much will Cybertruck cost? The official pricing for Cybertruck when they announced it was $70,000 for tri-motor, $50,000 for dual motor, and $40,000 for single motor. I think that the first vehicle they're going to sell, Elon has said, will be the quad motor, and my guess is that's going to be $100,000 or more. And then my guess is they're going to skip over tri-motor and go to dual motor. And you'll have a choice between quad motor and dual motor. That's my gut hunch, and quad motor will be, you know, 100 grand, and dual motor will be like 75 grand, but I'm just guessing. Mark Plot says, 1 complete Dojo cabinet was shown at AI Day 2, and more are being built. Dojo's already in operation. I agree with that. I just don't think that they have several cabinets yet. I just learned from trading, it's gambling, and long-term investment of great stocks like Tesla wins in the end. That's my view. Use robo-taxi for the tunnels in Las Vegas. Elon has said that they will get to that. I don't think it's a high priority. I think the challenge is that it seems like it's simple, but just because it looks simple to us doesn't mean it's simple for the robo-taxis. And to train the robo-taxis to operate in the tunnels, you would need a fairly high volume of Teslas running in the tunnels. And then you would need to devote your supercomputing resources to that. And I think they have higher priorities for getting FSD working than getting it working in the tunnels. Because the tunnels are fairly low volume. It's not like a big deal. Phoebe says, I bet Travis County, Austin will be first for robotaxi trials. No, I think that any place that currently has robotaxi trials, like San Francisco with Waymo and Cruise and Chandler, Arizona with Waymo, those would be good places to do a trial. Places where they already have a set of rules to do a trial. That's where it would make sense to do. Tesla needs to spin off a Tesla merch company. I think they do merch fine. Jim Channel said Tesla sales are dropping. Tesla sales are not dropping. That's silliness. FSD subscriptions will be huge. Yeah, there should be an insurance discount, but if you have Tesla insurance, then you're already getting the discount. I do have to giggle that Twitter said the data load would be too much for Tesla to handle. Now they're expanding FSD. Right, Tesla can't handle it. Tesla can handle it. Which factory comes first, South Korea or India? India's a really tough place to build a factory. Okay, so I'm going to get ready to go to the Daily Lie, warrenredlick.locals.com. I put a link in the chat. There's a link in the description below. I'm going to take a couple minutes break and then start up over there. So I want to thank everybody for watching. Thank you to the moderators. Please check out the t-shirts at elonbits.com. Please support me on the Locals platform, on Patreon, or as a YouTube channel member. Check out my other videos. Like this video, share it, and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching.